One. Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Dan Cartalicchio. I want to welcome you to another segment of Destination Health Podcast, Finding Function in a Dysfunctional World. I'm excited. We have Christine Capella back on for part two because we didn't finish part one. So we're going to do part two today. And we just were talking for like a half an hour and we were talking about Italian things and it was kind of funny and it's all good, but we're ready to get serious and we're ready to rock and roll. So Christine is an online transformational coach, speaker. 6 years ago, she was assaulted. She underwent multiple surgeries, 2 facial reconstructive surgeries. I will tell you that when the social media company put up the post today that they tagged you in, my friends were like, no way. The guys and the girls were like, there's no way that she had facial reconstructive surgery. You had the best plastic surgeon in the face of the earth. 2 spine surgeries. She used fitness principles to overcome obstacles in life, build her mental toughness and fortitude, resilience and confidence. Her mantra is get up and get her done. Gotten her through all the hardships that she's had in her life. So Christine, welcome back for part 2. Let's see where this goes. Who knows? Maybe there's a part 3 that's going in. We can trade, recipes for homemade macaroni, and we can trade recipes for, you call it gravy or sauce. I don't know. Gravy.
I call it sauce.
Well, that's marinade, that's marinade. The gravy is when you put the braciole, and the sausage and the meatballs and stuff like that.
I don't know. I think I might have to disagree with you on that one. I think that's a Jersey thing. Gravy is
you think like that's a Jersey?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people from New York who call it gravy too.
I don't know. We're going to disagree on that one.
That's all right. You can't agree on everything. And
you can't.
If that's the only thing that 2 people disagree on in the way society is going today, it's not a bad thing.
It's definitely not a bad thing.
And then we can have a contest to see who makes the best on a Sunday. And the winner, that's what you have to call it from here on in. So if I win, you got to call it gravy. If you win, I call it. I'm not losing any sleep for that one.
I think that's a good competition. I like it.
You like that competition. All right. Then I'm going to bring over homemade bread. Okay. It's pretty good. Anyway, so let's get into how you overcome, the surgeries. How did you overcome these surgeries? I mean, you've had 2 spine surgeries and you just had one recently too. And you're a fitness enthusiast. You've got this mental resilience that you have going on. It's never easy. I mean, I know that when I had my knee done, multiple times, it was always a pain to try to overcome. But for you, this was a spine surgery. What happened with this? What type of surgery did you have?
So the very first surgery was an ACDF surgery. Mm-hmm. And
explain what that is for the audience. I know what it is.
Yes. So they go in the front of your neck and they move your trachea, your esophagus, and they replace your herniated discs. And then they put some screws in there. And I also got a fusion. So what they did was put cadaver bones into my neck, hoping that the bones would grow and I would fuse and my spine would be secure. So that was the first surgery. And unfortunately, that surgery was a failed surgery in that I did not fuse. We don't know why my bones didn't grow. We couldn't figure it out, but I ended up having to go back in for a second surgery. And that's the one that was the most recent one that was in December 2nd, 2020. I always have to keep my dates correct. And that was a double spine surgery. And so I had another ACDF surgery and a posterior cervical fusion all at once. And in that surgery, again, they did the same thing that they did the first time, but they replaced a level above the 2 levels that they had already replaced. And then they went in the back of my neck and they manually fused me by putting in 2 titanium rods into my neck to manually fuse me since my bones were not growing. So now in my neck, I have 12 screws, 3 metal discs, 2 titanium rods, and a wire mesh all around my neck.
And how do you work out? What is that like? Because listen, before we were discussing coming on the podcast, mean, I saw some of the videos where you're like working out and you had the
Brace
you know, the
on.
neck brace on, and I'm like, who is this person and why is she doing this? If she was my patient, I probably would have said, Christine, you know, stop, you know,
Yeah.
enough, you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, fitness really is my life. It is my therapy. It's the way that I deal with everything. But I also think that fitness really is a tool that we can use to overcome obstacles. When you can push through those little obstacles in your workout, I think that that also is a way for you to push through in life. So, coming out of the first surgery, I mean, it's not like I went back right away and like started doing like crazy workouts, but what I
You weren't
did
running
start,
6 miles the next day.
no, I definitely was not running 6 miles, but my mentality was like, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to get it done every single day. And it's going to look different than what it has in the past, but I'm going to start with a 5-minute walk. And so I would go for the 5-minute walk, and then I would come home and sleep for the rest of the day. Honestly, like the 5-minute walk, like knocked
Just
me
knocked
out.
you out.
Yeah, it knocked me out. But I was super proud of myself because I did exactly what I said that I was going to do. I got up, I went out, I went for that walk, and that was like my movement, right? Then the next day I would go for a 6-minute walk. And then the next day I would go for a 7-minute walk. And so if you've ever read that book, The Atomic Habits, where it talks about just getting 1% better every single day, that was my goal. Every single day, I just wanted to get 1% better and go a little bit further and do a little bit more. And for me, my favorite type of workout is Soul Cycle, which is indoor spinning. And so that entire time, I was just visualizing myself back on the bike and back in the studio. So that was my incentive. I was like, I'm going to just keep building up until I can get back on the bike. And so after that first surgery, I was back in the studio within 5 weeks, which is almost like unheard of. That was really quick. And then after the second surgery, I did the same thing. Like it was the same process every single time. After I was assaulted, and then with the spine surgery, and then the second spine surgery, I just got up and started walking. I went for the 5-minute walk, the 7-minute walk, then the 8-minute walk, and just kept building upon it until I could get myself back to Soul Cycle. And then after that second surgery, I was back on the bike within 11 weeks. So it was just a very slow buildup, but it was also just that my mentality is that you got to want it more than it hurts, right? And so I wanted it bad enough. I wasn't going to make an excuse. I was going to find a way. And so that's what I did every single time. I found a way. And honestly, you can't stop someone that doesn't quit. And I never quit. I didn't quit on myself. So that's what got me through.
So where does this never quit attitude come from?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of it, some of it started with the assaults, like I just really, like, if I go back to those moments, for me, I was like, well, if I quit, like I have two options here, right? Like I can quit and give up, and then what happens, right? Like I'm not going to have my life back. And at the end of the day, who wins? My assaulter wins. And yes. I was like, I'm not going to allow him to have that power of winning. I'm going to win. I'm going to take my own power back, and I'm not going to quit on myself. And so I kept pushing through because of that. And I think really it's just that grit and that toughness where you just want to keep going. And then what's happened for me is that every time I've had to go in for a surgery, because every time you go in, you're going back to square one, right? Like it's not like you're going right back to square one.
Right.
And every time I was like, well, you want to know what? I've done it before. I can do it again. Let me see how far I can push myself. What's the next level that I can get to? And it almost became this game in my head, almost like, I don't even know if I want to call it a video game, but in my mind, I'm like, what's the next level? I'm going to keep going and raising the bar and seeing what is the next level that I can get to. And I'm going to push myself to get to that next level. And it really wasn't about bouncing back. It was about getting to the next level for myself.
Right. You didn't want to come back to where you were beforehand. You were going to 10x it. You were going to 20x it. You were going to sit there and say, all right, this happened to me, and I'm going to show the world what it is to be Christine Capella. And, you want to inspire others.
Yeah.
Now that I mentioned that, who inspires you?
Oh, I think we kind of touched upon this a little bit on the first episode, but really, my mother, I watched my mom go through lung cancer, and I watched her beat it, and she never once complained going through treatment. So like that has been a huge inspiration for me. My grandmother, who was my mom's mom, my grandmother was just a fighter. I'll never forget, she had fallen. She broke her hip, and she was in a cast from like her hip to her ankle. She broke all the bones in her leg, and she was just fighting to go home. She goes home, refused any help at home, kicked all the nurses out. Then she ends up falling again.
My grandmother did the same thing. It must be an Italian thing. Oh,
it's definitely an Italian thing.
I'll tell you later what she said to people. Anyway,
I'm sure there are a lot of curse words in there because my grandmother definitely cursed a lot. But then as my grandmother's in this cast, then she falls and shatters her entire arm. So now she's got a cast from hip to ankle, and she ends up having to go in for surgery and gets like 9 screws and her whole arm, like elbow redone. And so I watched her fight through all of it. And so like, I've always had these really strong women
around
in my life that are just fighters.
So what other obstacles have you had to overcome? Sounds like you've had some other obstacles that you've had to overcome.
Yeah,
I mean, that.
There definitely have been other obstacles. I think that a lot of my relationships that I've been in the past have not necessarily been the healthiest of relationships. A lot of that, I had to do the inner work where I had to look at myself and say, okay, every person can't be unhealthy, right? Like I'm making the choice to be with these people. Why am I making the choice? What am I contributing? What is going on internally with me? And what I found for myself was that I was lacking a lot of the self-confidence that I needed to set boundaries, set standards, and I was making poor choices in relationships, and I was just dating people that I shouldn't have been dating, and I was accepting less than what I was worth.
So when you were put into that situation with the assault, were you accepting less at that point? It's like you shouldn't have been in that situation right from the beginning, right?
No, in that one, that was not the mentality there at all, because that was just a random situation on the street. I had never seen him before. I didn't know him. I hadn't talked to him in the bar. Like he just approached me on the street. So that was just a very random freak accident
type of a thing.
Yeah.
Now you do a lot of speaking around the city, right?
Yeah.
What are the messages that you convey to those that you're speaking to?
I mean, obviously, like my story with assault obviously lends itself to overcoming obstacles, facing adversity, finding that inner strength and that grit and that resilience. And so that's obviously what I speak a lot about. But I also, like I just shared, the other piece to my story is knowing that I did not have the confidence in myself, and I was accepting less than when I was dating men. And so therefore, I've really had to build up my own self-confidence and my own self-love. And that's a topic that I'm really passionate about. And it's something that I really love helping women in particular with, because for me, like if I can help like that 20-year-old, for example, that I was in the past
Sure.
from making the same mistakes that I made, I would love, like, that's who I would love to help.
And we were talking about that kind of with some of my family members before we came on, right?
Yes.
Because if you don't have the self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-love, you just make those poor decisions, and you never know where they're going to come about and how it's going to manifest. What were some of the
Yeah.
techniques that you used to build your confidence besides the working out? Because you said you did inner work. Tell me, what was that inner work that you did?
So I think a lot of it was just taking a massive step back from dating, like just stopping it altogether. Because I think that if you really want to do the inner work, you have to do it alone, I think.
Mhm,
I know, I think everybody is a little bit different. People might
mhm,
feel differently about that, but I think for me, I had to do it on my own.
mhm,
I really had to look inward and figure out what were the trends in my dating history. And so I looked at the trends. I had to figure out what had I accepted that I shouldn't have accepted, right? So
mhm,
I literally had to do a lot of journaling, a lot of writing, and a lot of reflection
mhm,
as to where were my missteps. So
mhm,
then once you figure out where your missteps are, then you're like, okay, well now I know what I did in the past. I don't want to repeat those same mistakes. So now when I see it coming at me, I now can say no easily. And when you know exactly what you're worth, when you can stand in your worthiness, in your enoughness without needing anyone else, then it's very easy to say no to anyone or anything that is not in alignment with you. And so again, I had to get very clear on what it was that my
mhm,
standards were and what it was that I was looking for. And so I'll
mhm.
share this with you. Like I know when the new year comes around, people always have that like word for themselves. Like, what's my word of the year going to be? And I do have my word for myself, but I also
Are you going to share
decided
your word with us when you're done
I
with this?
yeah, no, of course I can
Okay.
share my
All right.
word.
I want to hear the story because I'm
Okay.
fascinated right now. Then we'll get into your word.
Okay. But I also decided that I was going to have a word for the men that I date because that
Oh,
was now going to be a standard that I was going to hold myself and others to. And my word for the men that I date just is integrity. Like, you have to have integrity. You need to do exactly what you say that you're going to do. You need to be honest and
mhm,
you need to have integrity.
mhm. Yeah, you know why? Because a lot of people don't have integrity, and
Yeah,
when you were assaulted, clearly the gentleman had no integrity,
none,
right?
none.
There was a zero integrity, and that is a problem today.
It
And
is.
it manifests into many different things besides, poor physical health, poor mental health. You don't feel good about yourself. You overeat.
Right.
You're not, you're not taking care of yourself because clearly you said to yourself at one point in time, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to take care of myself on many different planes, mental,
Yeah.
physical, emotional, in order to overcome this and 10x and 10x my life, 20x my life. That's kind of like the new terminology, I think. You
Yeah.
know, 10xing and 20xing and and so forth. And so, what is your word for 2022?
Well, for myself, my
Mhm.
word is patience. I don't know. I don't know if it's being Italian. I don't know if it's living in New York.
I'm gonna let you go right now because
Are you patient?
I'm gonna
Are you
retort
patient?
when you're done. Go ahead.
I want to know if you're patient. I am not patient in that, like, when I feel like I'm ready for something, I just want it to happen right away. And what I realized is that I had to just continue to have faith that things are going to work out. But that does not mean, and this is, I think, where people get patience mixed up, is that it does not mean just sitting there idly waiting for something to happen. What it means is having that faith and knowing that things will work out while you actively take the steps and you actively put in the work. Like, and again, I'm going to go back to just even my recovery with my surgeries, right? Like, I had the faith and I knew that I was going to recover, but it wasn't going to happen if I just sat like a lazy lump on a log on the couch and did nothing. Like, I had to actively take the steps. And so that's what I did every single day. Actively, I started out with a 5-minute walk, then a 6-minute walk, 7-minute walk, 8-minute walk, so on. And now here I am at this point today. And so it's the same thing with every other part of life, is just having that faith, but taking those steps and actively doing what you need to do.
So at one point in time after all of this happened, and I think of you as a motivational speaker, right? And if I were in the audience, this is what I would ask you. You know, at what point in time, when was that moment, if you can define one moment, what was that moment in time when you said, you know what, I'm happy where I am because I've overcome, I'm better mentally, physically, and emotionally. You know, what was that point in time that happened?
Ooh,
I
it's
ask
funny.
tough questions, Christine, you know that.
Yeah, you do. It's funny because my journey has really been, there's been a lot of ups and downs in it. So every time I think that I'm at that point where I'm like, okay, I'm at this place, then something happens, right?
Life,
Like then
life has a tendency to knock you down at that point,
yeah,
right? It's got to
life,
teach you another lesson.
yes. And so, you know, like I thought that I was doing well after the assault, and then I get told that I have to go in for spine surgery. Then I think that I'm doing well after the spine surgery, and then I'm told that, oh, nope, you got to go in for a double spine surgery. So it's been a lot of back and forth. But what I will say is, after the assault, there was this immense amount of gratitude that I had, because I realized that there was so much more that could have happened that didn't happen to me, right? Like, in retrospect, I should have been brain dead. I should have not had, I shouldn't have my eyesight, right? Like, my sunglasses completely shattered on my face. Like, how did glass shards not get into my eyes? How am I not paralyzed from the neck down, right? Like, so after that, I had an immense amount of gratitude. Then I go in for the first spine surgery, and I wake up from that surgery and I'm told that if I hadn't had that surgery, I should have, you know, I would have been paralyzed within 6 months to a year from the neck down, because my scans weren't showing everything. So again, it's like, oh my gosh, I have this new lease on life. Like, I've made it, like I can move my body. Then I go in for the second spine surgery, and I wake up and I'm told that I had snapped 2 of my titanium screws from the previous surgery in half, and I had metal fragments everywhere in my neck. So again, it's like, here I am for really like the third time in my life escaping paralysis. And I honestly just, every single time, it's like a reminder, you have to have so much gratitude for where you are. And it's been a journey. It's been a lot of ups and downs. If you've been watching my stories, you know that lately I've been in a ton of pain, but at the end of the day, I can still move my body. I'm here, I'm alive.
Not only your moving body, but you are in amazing shape. How does nutrition come into all of this?
Nutrition is huge. I'm a big believer that you cannot outwork a bad diet, right? Like, but I also don't
Just like I tell my students and my students that are listening, you can't out supplement a bad diet either. And they try to do that. You can't do that.
You can't. You have to eat real foods. I am a firm believer that you should be eating all food groups unless you have an intolerance for whatever reason. I'm a
We're on the
big
same page.
believer. Yeah,
Right.
I'm a big believer in portion control, like
Mhm.
making sure that you are just eating the correct sizes
Mm-hmm.
of your food. I'm also a big believer in that if you want a treat, don't deprive yourself. Just don't overdo it.
Right. Don't have a half a dozen Schwiedels.
Right.
Have one. That's a tough one for me.
It is.
Okay,
is.
with the
I get
little espresso and some anisette in there with,
Life
I'm
is good.
salivating.
Yes.
We're going out, Dr. Sock and I, after this. There's a place, little Italian place. We're gonna get that. I think he gets the canoles, the gunoles.
Oh
So
my goodness.
I don't know. Anyway, I got to stop that. Anyway, so what are your goals now for 2022? What do you want to accomplish personally? Let's start there first.
Personally, I mean, honestly, personally, just for my own self, I want to continue to go on this journey of life with as much grace as possible. I want to continue to move my body in whatever capabilities I can, right? And I just want to be happy. I just want to live life. Like really, like personally, like it sounds very simple. But I really just want to be happy and live life personally. And then professionally, I obviously have some bigger goals and bigger dreams.
All right,
and
let's hear what they are, because I think I know what they are.
Do you think you know what they are?
Tell me, and I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, the overarching goal, and I say it in my bio on Instagram, is that I'm really here just to impact people's hearts. That's like the overarching goal. And so my platform for doing that is social media. My platform for doing that now, I've been moving into motivational speaking, which is something that I never ever thought that I would do, but I'm here doing it and I'm going to continue, and I want to get onto larger stages. I want to continue to coach people. I want to I'm in the process of creating my own merchandise line, which will be dropping pretty soon. I'm in the process of creating my own.
Are you doing males and females?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Do I get the first set of male clothes then?
Yes, you can. Yes, you
Thank
can.
you very
I've got
much.
you.
If
I've
not, I'm
got you.
gonna call your mom up and.
Yeah, I've got you on that one. I promise.
Okay.
And then I'm also in the process of creating my own podcast that I'm hoping to launch. I can't give a date. I'm like, but I am in the process of creating my own podcast.
I can help you out with some guests with that too.
Well, I am going to be riding solo.
Oh, you're going to go solo. You're just going to be talking.
It's just going to be me. I'm a one-woman show.
Wow. Tell me more about this.
So it's going to be a lot of like what you see on my Instagram, but it's going to be much more in depth, because obviously in your stories, you can only do 15-second to 60-second clips, right? Like you're not sitting there for a good 20 minutes speaking.
Right.
But it will be about the same topics, and I will be expanding on that message.
If you had a 16-year-old individual sitting in front of you, what would you say to them to help inspire them to a better life?
Jeez. I would honestly tell them that the belief starts within them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you believe in yourself, like fully believe in yourself, you're unstoppable. And I think that a lot of us, and I'm going to put myself in there, like I think my younger self, I didn't believe in my capabilities. I didn't trust my intuition. I didn't trust my gut. I didn't believe that I was capable of all that I was capable of. And so if I'm just going back to my 16-year-old self, right, and just talking to that person, it would really just be believe in yourself. and know
Yeah.
that you are capable of putting your mind to anything, and you're worthy. I think that this is another big one, is just that you're worthy of everything that you want. Like, you're worth it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think this, when I have guests on, we don't talk macros and micros and stuff like that on my podcast.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do, but we get into what makes you tick, because that's the juice and that's where the stories lie. And that's why I came up with the mantra: motivate, educate, and inspire, because it's, that's what you're doing here, because you never know if there's, a senior citizen listening to this. You don't know if there's somebody in middle-aged. I don't know if I'm middle-aged or I'm a senior. I'm kind of like in between, I think.
You're definitely
Yeah.
not a senior. You're good.
Oh man, thank you. You're the first person that's ever said that. Yeah, I don't know. I have to think about that. I got to process. You don't know if a young adult, you don't know if a teenager is listening to this, because having faith, being worthy, self-love, saying no, having strong people in your life, and then helping be a strong person in that individual's life is extremely important.
Yeah.
We're almost done here. You see how fast these things go?
I know it does go so fast. And I want to say something really quickly, because you mentioned just now about having strong people in your life. And I think that going back to like speaking to that 16-year-old, I would also like really focus on, who do you surround yourself with?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, when you're 16 years old, you're not thinking about all of those people and how they influence you. But I really do think it's so important to look at your circle of friends and look at who you're surrounding yourself with. And are you surrounding yourself with people of integrity? Are you surrounding yourself with people that inspire you and want you to be, and they want you to be a better person, and they're making
Right.
you a better person? So
I think that's an important point, because I think that's what's missing today, in part.
yeah,
There's so many things that I think are missing,
yeah,
but you are the sum of those, whatever number of people that you have around you. I look at my own family, and I've recently said that to a niece of mine.
yeah,
That was the one that was on the beach that we were talking about. So I said, you're just, I said, you need a new set of friends, as far as I'm concerned, in my very humble opinion. And I ask my guests to be vulnerable, and I'm going to be vulnerable because my mother does have lung cancer right now. And it's beatable. She's getting her treatments and the tumor is shrinking, but she's falling apart. We don't know what she's going through mentally and physically. We're trying to help her out with this, but she has fallen apart because of the individuals that she has grown up around.
yeah,
That's a podcast. I have another podcast called Bloomfield Avenue that my friend Jerry and I run. So we could talk about being Italian on that one, because he's Italian, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good, just like anything else in this lifetime.
yes,
So that's a conversation for another time. But it's like she's fallen apart. She doesn't have faith right now. She doesn't have self-worth. She doesn't have self-confidence. She doesn't have self-love. And we're trying to get that. So in her. So that is very important to have. Boy, I think we should have a
yes.
TV show, Christine. What do you think?
I know. Well, first and foremost, just know that I am sending your mom so much love and
Thank you.
just praying for her. And I hope that she finds the faith that she needs, and that she digs deep to reach high, and that she just keeps on pushing through.
As my sisters and I have said, it's amazing, and the disparity in the way that we approach things between
Yeah.
my mother and the way that we look at things. But that's okay. It's all good. We're
Yeah.
here in part to help her out. That's the way I look at it. So we're almost done. Give me anything you want, because I'm going to give you free reign for the next couple of minutes. Talk to me, Goose. Talk to me.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna end it off on this note that I always like to come back to this one quote, where courage is not always that loud, boisterous, roaring voice in your head.
Mhm.
But it is oftentimes the soft, quiet voice that tells you to dust yourself off, get yourself up, and keep going the very next day.
Mhm.
And so, with that, I hope that it inspires you to get up and get it done every single day, because you're worth it, you deserve it, you need to believe it, and you can do it.
I totally agree with you. That's a perfect end to this segment. Looking forward to another segment in the future, Christine. I think there's so much more to talk about. So I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for being you. I'm grateful that you have come out. I'm grateful that we're becoming friends. You have a lot to offer. And I think that motivational speaking is definitely something that is in your future, because you have overcome and, to motivate, educate, and inspire. I think that's where your talent lies in the long run. So I think that's going to be awesome. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And I'm so glad that I was here for part 2.
Absolutely. So how can people contact you?
You can
Where can they
find me.
find Christine Capella in the world?
You can
Where is
find me.
she? She's somewhere
over-
in New York City.
Yeah, right over in New York City. You can find me on Instagram. You can always message me there. I always tell everybody that my DMs are open on Instagram. You can message me if you're going through a struggle, whatever you need. I've got you. I have just recently gotten into the world of TikTok, so you can find me over there at Christine Capella as well. I'm just
I'm not
learning.
a talker yet.
Yeah, I'm
I
learning
haven't
it
made the
slowly.
plunge to the talk.
It's rough, but I'm learning it slowly, but I'm much more active on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Christine, for coming on. I want to thank everybody for listening. Contact Christine. You need somebody motivational speaking for your group, whatever that is, she can help you out. Contact her, let her help you. Remember, we love to motivate, educate, and inspire. Thank you very much, Christine. Thank you everybody for listening. Until the next time, live your best life. Take care.